Ryerse. So glad to be along with you today on the Vote Common Good Politics podcast. This is the Common Good podcast. I'm so glad to be alongside with you today. I am flying solo, which is why I didn't have the fancy intro music that I always like to bop my head to as we get started. I'm also coming to you a little late today, and that is because my dear wife, Vanessa, is headed to the We the People ride. She is going to be doing her second stint on the We the People ride. It is a bike ride along the southern border of the United States to highlight the need for a common good border policy and immigration policy. And our fearless leader, Doug Paget, who normally is my partner in crime on this podcast, is done the entire ride along the southern border, and my wife is headed to do the final week with the team as well. She had been on the ride in Texas, and now is going back for the final week as they finish up in Florida. And so I had to take her to the airport this morning so she could head down there. And that's why we're coming to you with an afternoon podcast instead of a morning podcast. Producer Dan's a little bit under the weather today, and so he's not going to be able to be with us. But I am here, and I want to encourage you to, if you listen to the podcast, if you support the work that we do at Vote Common Good, I'd really encourage you to check out this final week of the We the People ride. It's going to be ending on Sunday, and we are looking for 500 people to donate as these last 500 miles of the ride get ridden. And if we can hit 500 individual donors during the course of this final week, there's a donor who is going to kick in $5,000 as a bonus for that. So if you can do that, please check out the We the People Ride website, wethepeopleride.org, or you can check out our social media channels for Vote Common Good, and that would be greatly appreciated. We don't usually do a lot of plugs for money, but it'd be a big help here in the final week of the We the People Ride. And if you're nearby or not nearby and want to jump on a bike and ride across Florida and end up in St. Augustine, we'd be more than happy to have you. So you can do that too. Well, listen, today we're going to be talking about some news stories, some things that are happening in the world, some things that have taken place over the past week. It's been a big week in politics, and so we're going to be talking about some news stories and looking at them through the vantage point, through the perspective of the common good, seeing the political implications of these news stories, how they live at the intersection of faith and politics, and how they're going to impact the things that we care about. And so what we're going to do today is fly through some news stories and talk about it. And if you'd like to chime in the comments, that would be awesome. I've got those up, and I can follow along as we go. I'd love to have your input. I'm coming to you from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Love to see where you are in the world, and so here we go. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened last week. It was a big day, Tuesday. The first major election after Joe Biden's election to the presidency a year ago. Gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia were the two big races that everybody had their eyes on. In addition to the Buffalo mayor's race, which is another interesting one, which probably not going to talk about that much. I don't know, how you feeling after the results in Virginia and New Jersey? You a little nervous? Yeah, things didn't go the way you expected, right? In New Jersey, that's actually, between the two of them, a little bit more troubling to me, because New Jersey is a reliably blue, solid blue state. And And it was a paper-thin margin that the governor of New Jersey, Democratic governor of New Jersey, was reelected. And, it's something to give Democrats some pause. That coupled with the election results in Virginia, where former Governor Terry McAuliffe was running to be reelected and serve another term as governor, and he was knocked off by his Republican opponent in that race, Youngkin, and Governor-elect Youngkin. And, again, another one of those states that over the years has been trending blue. But the reality is that historically in Virginia, Virginia borders the District of Columbia. There's so many people, and so much that happens in our federal political world that has an impact in Virginia, and it's all just kind of part of the same media market and such a, so intertwined. Virginia has this tendency that when there is a Republican in the White House, Virginia elects a Democrat to be their governor. And when there's a Democrat in the White House, Virginia elects a Republican to be their governor. And for some reason, that kind of trend continued. Now, this doesn't bode well for Democrats. If you have been a part of, this conversation that we have on the Vote Common Good podcast, particularly on the Politics podcast, you know that I have been ringing the alarm bell about the midterms for a while now. The 2022 midterms are downright scary to me, and I have repeatedly asked people to talk me off the ledge because the party out of power, in this case Republicans, the party that doesn't control the White House, typically does really, really well in the midterms. In the first midterm election of a president's first term, and so that bodes well for Republicans. And then it's the type of Republicans that are likely to get elected, Trump Republicans, that is really scary. And this election on Tuesday in New Jersey and Virginia, if it is a bellwether of what is to come, if it's the canary in the coal mine, if it's the initial indication that for whatever reason people are turning away from Democrats, it really looks like it could be bad news a year from now. But a year is a long time to turn things around. And, as I made the case last week that, Joe Biden, very well could turn out to be like George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush in a year went from the highest approval ratings that a president had ever had at 89% to losing re-election. A lot can change in a year. And so Joe Biden can really turn his bad poll numbers around. He's got the time to do that. There is according to this latest polling, and it's coming from all different places, including CNN. The president is not doing real well in terms of approval ratings. CNN says this: a year out from the 2022 midterms, 58% of Americans say Joe Biden hasn't paid enough attention to the nation's most important problems, as a majority disapproves of the way he's handling his job as president. More than a third of Americans call the economy the most pressing problem facing the country. Among that group that sees it that way, 72% say Biden hasn't been attentive to the right issues. That dynamic is reversed among the smaller 20% who consider the coronavirus pandemic the nation's top problem. 79% in that subset said Biden has had the right priorities, while 21% do not. All told, 48% of adults approve of the way Biden is handling the job, while 52% disapprove. President's numbers don't look good right now. It's tied to the two big things. It's always going to be tied to the economy. It's the economy, stupid, as James Carville, once taught us. so tremendously important that that the economy be strong and growing, for the president to do well. People's approval ratings of the president, and it's such an interesting thing to me because, for me, in my mind, the U.S. economy is like a big tanker ship. It's like a big ship that you can't turn on a dime. Just like it takes a long time to turn a big ship, the U.S. economy takes some time to turn. And I often feel like presidents get blamed for bad economies when it was the predecessor's policies who caused that, or presidents get credit for good economies when it was the predecessor's policies that caused that, because whether for good or for bad, it takes time to shift the U.S. economy. And coming out of the pandemic and all of the uncertainty that brought about, this economy is going to take time to turn around. Now, good jobs report came out this last week, and certainly the infrastructure bill getting passed is going to be good news for the economy. Now, how this infrastructure bill gets implemented and is going to be really, really important. So there's still time for Joe Biden to turn things around, Democrats to turn things around to avert disaster a year from now. But that's going to start with winning big with this infrastructure bill. Now, for those of you that were around in the This Guy's Got to Go days, when Doug and I used to do a This Guy's Got to Go podcast about that former guy, the twice impeached, lost more votes than anyone else ever did in his re-election bid, failed former guy, Donald Trump. We used to laugh quite a bit because it seemed like every time the Trump administration got in trouble, which was pretty frequently, they would try to change the conversation by talking about it being infrastructure week. And on multiple occasions, Trump administration officials would trot out to the microphone and say, hey, it's infrastructure week. We're going to tackle infrastructure. We're going to do something about our roads and our bridges and all of this stuff. And infrastructure week, infrastructure week, infrastructure week. In fact, when I was a candidate for the United States Congress, running as a progressive Republican in the state of Arkansas, I'll let you try to figure that out in your brain, but that's a conversation for another time. But when I was running as a progressive Republican, a never Trumper Republican running for Congress, and I was asked by reporters, hey, what do you agree with President Trump on? They were trying to get me with a gotcha question. I used to say things like, well, I completely agree with the president on the need to improve our infrastructure. Like, infrastructure it's a slam dunk, easy, bipartisan win. It's something everybody knows. Hey, roads need to be better. Bridges need to be better. Things need to be better in terms of our infrastructure. And finally, Democrats got it done. Finally, this bipartisan infrastructure bill gets passed. It comes in at the tune of $1.2 trillion. It's a big one. But that's money that is going to be spent in really important ways. Bridges, roads. I live here in Arkansas, and the bridge between Arkansas and Tennessee that goes from West Memphis into Memphis, Tennessee, is closed because it's got a huge crack in it. Bridge over the Mississippi River. It's bad. Our infrastructure needs work, roads and bridges. Now, listen, the good news of this is that this means jobs for people. We're going to be putting people to work, fixing our infrastructure. It's good, hardworking, union jobs that are, this is going to be great for the economy. The bad news is none of us like sitting in construction traffic, and, we probably will be doing that. But that's what we have to, if that's the sacrifice we have to make, come on, folks, that's the sacrifice we're going to have to make. There's also money to increase and modernize our public transit, including modernizing the train system. And, I've been big proponent of high-speed rail, would love to see that across the country, and would encourage that some of this money gets spent on that. The infrastructure bill also includes a broadband update, which is so tremendously important. We've seen that so much of our economy is built on commerce that takes place online, and we have education where kids are, throughout the pandemic, it highlighted the need for there to be internet infrastructure, especially in rural areas, and this bill is going to include a major improvement in the country's broadband infrastructure, which is great. Airports, waterways, electric vehicles, improving power and water systems, and beginning to have some impact with environmental remediation and fixing brown field sites and landmines and a number of really important things. So this is a big win for the president. It's a big win. There were 6 Democratic congresspeople who voted against this bill, not because they oppose the bill. They actually don't. They're big supporters of it. But they voted against it because they had been assured that 2 bills would come in conjunction with each other. One would be the infrastructure bill. The other would be the Build Back Better agenda. The Build Back Better bill that includes, expanding community college and expanding pre-K and a number of social programs that have been a part of the president's agenda. And there are a number of progressives in Congress who said, listen, we've got to pass these 2 things together. They go together. And if we pass the infrastructure bill, we're afraid that the rug's going to get pulled out on the Build Back Better spending plan, investment plan. And so we think that we need to, pass these things together. They were given those assurances, but then at the end of the day, I think the election in Virginia and New Jersey spooked Democrats, and they went back on that deal that was made with progressives, and went ahead and passed the infrastructure bill on its own. While I personally, completely agree with the squad who voted against this bill, I completely agree that these bills needed to go together, and that Nancy Pelosi should not go back on her promise to them that they would. I also see how desperately the president needed to have a big win, and so that's what took place. Now, hopefully, AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar and Jamal Bowman, hopefully their concerns will be unfounded. And Cori Bush is the other one. Forgot Cori, who's actually a dear friend of mine, and can't believe I forgot Cori. The lady I used to say to Cori, I can't wait to call you Congresswoman. And the night of her election, I sent her a text and said, I get to finally call you Congresswoman. So these 6 members of Congress who voted against the infrastructure bill, I hope that their fears turn out to be unfounded, that the Build Back Better agenda will go forward as well. Frankly, the president needs that big win. It's being held hostage by Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema in the Senate. So now that the infrastructure bill, these 2 things have been decoupled, Nancy Pelosi, wasn't honest with the progressive caucus and wasn't honest with the squad about what she was going to do. They decoupled these 2 bills. The infrastructure bill's been passed. Okay, let's take that as a win for the president. Now we got to get the Build Back Better agenda passed. And that means putting a lot of pressure on Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to make sure that happens. And if it doesn't happen, I think we're going to continue to see, bad news for the president in terms of poll numbers and prognostication for 2022. But even while some of my friends in Congress. I know AOC, I know Jamal Bowman, I know Cori Bush, I've met Rashida Tlaib. Even while my friends in Congress were voting against the infrastructure bill, there were 13 Republicans who voted for it because infrastructure is a good thing. This is quality spending. But that did not keep our, favorite Congresswoman from the state of Georgia, I say kind of sarcastically, Marjorie Taylor Greene, from tweeting about the communist infrastructure bill, the infrastructure bill that is going to improve our roads and bridges, is being communist. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted that this was all a part of Joe Biden's communist takeover of America via infrastructure. Communist takeover of America via infrastructure. I wonder what Dwight Eisenhower would say to think that investing in American infrastructure is being equated with communism. Marjorie Taylor Greene, not so bright on this one. But it shows this deep divide that exists in the Republican Party. I was just talking about the divide that exists in the Democratic Party between the progressives and the establishment. But on the Republican side, there is a deep divide as well. There are 13 Republicans who voted for this infrastructure bill, including guys like Adam Kinzinger and several congresspeople in Michigan, Don Bacon in Nebraska, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But they voted for it and have the ire of the Trump wing of the Republican Party coming their way. And I think this is probably, who knows? I hope this is going to backfire on the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts, the Matt Gaetzes, and all of these folks who are so short-sighted that, everything goes through the political lens. They would rather do what's bad for the American economy and the American people, like if that means doing something that's good for Democrats, like giving Joe Biden a political win. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, and the like would rather hurt the American public if it means, hurting Joe Biden, and their loyalty is showing, and it's ridiculous that their loyalty is with their own political winning. But that's this rise that we've seen in voters and Congress people whose values aren't conservative, whose values aren't even traditional, but whose values are authoritarian. So at Vote Common Good, when we do training with candidates, we do trainings with them, and we help them kind of understand the political landscape, and particularly with through the idea of faith. And we identify that in the United States, we've got two political parties, but we've got a number of different political perspectives. One of them is voters with a postmodern value set. There are those who have a liberal modern value set. There are those who have a conservative modern value set. And there are those who have a kind of a strict traditionalist value set. And each of those value sets cause different issues to be important to those voters. But what we've seen emerge in the electorate is a fifth group, and that is a group with a value set that is purely authoritarian. And they are willing to throw out all other values for the sake of winning. Winning, takes precedent. And they'll just do whatever it takes to win. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is a part of this group. And we're seeing that, that there's a willingness to do what's bad for the American people, if it means not doing anything that could possibly help Joe Biden. But we're going to see, how things turn out with Joe Biden's poll numbers as we begin to barrel towards the midterm elections. And as we move towards the midterm elections, one of the big things that's on everybody's mind that everybody's looking at is redistricting and how that is going to play out. It's so important, the lines being drawn and how the districts are going to be shaped. And, because of the census, this happens every 10 years, because the census has taken place, the lines are going to be redrawn for all of the House seats. And there's some states that are gaining seats, some states that are losing seats. There's different processes in different states for how this happens. But in the state of Ohio, the proposed map that has been released makes it really difficult for Jim Jordan to win re-election. Now, this is a bit of a surprise because typically Republican legislatures, like they have in Ohio, protect Republican seats, but for some reason, Jim Jordan, congressman who's famous for two things. One, for not wearing a jacket during committee hearings, that guy. And two, more importantly, for looking the other way and not reporting sexual abuse that took place in the wrestling program at the high school where he was a coach, or maybe it was college. I can't remember all the details. But Jim Jordan's that guy, like one of the worst Republicans there is. And his district is, like, in this proposed map, is being eliminated, and how it would line up is it would actually pit Jim Jordan against Joyce Beatty, who is a Democratic congresswoman that represents much of Columbus. And the way this map lines up, it would pit the two of them against each other, which would be like, a dynamic fight between two sitting members of Congress running against each other for re-election. I just point this out because I find this really fascinating. Now, who knows if this map will stick? Redistricting maps can get rewritten and changed. Right now, here in the state of Arkansas, where I'm at, we have an open period of discussion where the public can weigh in on the maps that have been proposed, and hopefully that will make a difference in some of the ridiculousness that are a part of the Arkansas maps. But this was just something that was pretty interesting to me. It's just, I just find it funny that maybe we could get rid of Jim Jordan thanks to a Republican-led legislature in Ohio and a Republican governor in Ohio. That would be good for the country. So thanks, guys. We appreciate that. Well, listen, one more story. We had a lot of conversation this week about vaccines. Kids are now eligible to get vaccines. Younger children are eligible to get vaccines. And my 7-year-old daughter got her vaccine on Friday. And listen, I'll tell you this from kids that I know, kids that are part of my church, kids that, are children of friends of mine. The kids are excited about getting vaccinated. Like, they're excited about it. My daughter got her shot, didn't flinch, didn't cry, nothing. She was excited to get it because they know, like, this pandemic has shaped their lives in really unbelievable ways, and they don't want any more part of it. Like, if this means we can be over with this thing, give me the shot. And that's the attitude of my 7-year-old. And being encouraged along the way by, Big Bird. Have you seen this story? So CNN did a little special with Sanjay Gupta, their medical correspondent. And they had a couple of characters from Sesame Street on to talk about kids getting vaccinated. Big Bird was one of them. And then Big Bird tweeted about how he got vaccinated. She got vaccinated. Big Bird, a boy or a girl? Non-binary. I have no idea. I don't know where Big Bird fits on the gender spectrum. But Big Bird tweeted that they got vaccinated. Their wing was a little sore, but gives their body the boost that they need. And, kind of threw in, and I also learned that I've been vaccinated my whole life, in other ways. Yeah, because vaccines are good. Well, wouldn't you know, Fox News freaks out about this. Their Fox and Friends co-host calling this propaganda. Here's the quote. We talked a little bit here about let me get this out here. We talked a little bit here earlier about the mandates, about the authoritarianism we see creeping into our society and culture. What's most disturbing is what we're seeing done to our kids. And she goes on, they're also upset about what I see, and I talked about this on Primetime this week, a lot of propaganda about the vaccines being not directed to the parents, not information given to the parents so they can make the decisions, really giving it directly to kids in some really creepy ways, including Sesame Street. Went on to say that it looked like a big pharma commercial on Sesame Street. Oh, folks. We're at the ridiculous point of the vaccine debate where Big Bird and Aaron Rodgers, our quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, are the central figures in the vaccine debate. Big Bird got the vaccine. Aaron Rodgers lied about getting the vaccine. He didn't really, and now he's got COVID-19. And Fox News thinks it is propaganda. Thinks it's creepy that Big Bird might talk to kids about stuff. Isn't that what Sesame Street is and has always been? Oh, the ridiculousness continues. But it doesn't continue here. We are not into ridiculousness. We are into the common good. And so I want to encourage you to do some common good, to be a common do-gooder, as we say around these parts. Make a difference in somebody's life. Make a difference in our world. Don't lose heart, but keep doing the things that will bring about the good that we all want to see in the world. We can do that. You can do that. And so until next week when I'm back with you, hopefully producer Dan will be here. Maybe even our fearless leader, Doug Padgett, will be back after months away riding along the southern border, hopefully with stories to tell. He might be back next week or the week after. I know he's going on a bit of vacation to, rest his legs after riding so much on the bike, on the We the People ride. But sooner or later, he'll be back. We'll probably be moving back to Tuesdays, but until all of that happens, it's great chatting with you today, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.